Sweet surrender as I love, serve, and remember.
So, I'm going to ask you a favor right now. Lift up your hands above your head. Both of them. And say, yes.
Yes.
Okay, yay.
Yay.
Hooray.
Hooray.
Woo! Okay. Okay, now close like this. Say, yay.
Yay.
Hooray.
Hooray.
Woo!
Woo.
Doesn't feel the same, does it? So we have to end with this. Let's do it again. Yay! Hooray! Woo! I just noticed a phenomenon recently because Julie and I were watching a movie, and spontaneously we all just went, yay! And I thought, we do that. You don't have to teach people to do that. They found even blind people who have never seen, when they're full of joy, raise their hands. It's a physical reaction that we have. I was in acting school, my one semester of acting school, and that's where I learned that if you have your arms like this, that means you're closed. You have closed off energy. Now you can use it when you're reflecting, but I choose, ever since I've learned that, anytime, other than if I'm cold, actually physically cold, like last week, but if I'm not cold, I notice that anytime I put my arms like this, I immediately open them. I can be reflective, but still have my body open. And so it's our physiology, when we smile, it makes us happy, whether we feel it or not. How we hold our body has such an impact on how open we are to the world. So even if you're struggling with what somebody's saying or you're not liking it, you can be reflective, but we want to stay open to the Spirit, because if we close off, we're also kind of closing off to the energy around us, which may be a protective mode. But I want to feel the presence of Spirit. So it has just become a habit of mine for 30 years to always uncross. It's not that it's bad, it just keeps us open. Our talk today is You Are Chosen, Be Inspired. And one of the ways to be inspired is to stay open. It's very hard to be inspired and stay shut down. So be inspired. Second one, there's 4, by the way, in case you're counting. Be open, be empowered. You are here to nurture your own inspiration. And so find those things that inspire you and continue to nurture yourself with those things that inspire you. For instance, Michael Beckwith, who started Agape, one of the things that inspired him was Martin Luther King's vision of the beloved community. As you know, tomorrow is Martin Luther King holiday. Howard Thurman, by the way, the reading, he was Martin Luther King's professor. I went to BU where Howard Thurman and Martin Luther King went, and Howard Thurman was a professor there, and he was the mentor to Martin Luther King. And so you go up on the 5th story of the BU library, and you can read Martin's papers when he was in school, and they were as brilliant when he was in school as when he was preaching. They're really wonderful to read. And Howard Thurman was his incredible mentor. So Howard Thurman and Martin Luther King, huge inspirations for Michael Beckwith. And so what he did, he was inspired by this idea of the beloved community. That was the main inspirations for Agape. But the way he kept himself inspired for years, long after Agape started, was he would go to the library, put on his headphones, and listen to Martin Luther King's speeches over and over. Just keep listening to all the different ones. And that would remind him vibrationally, that heart, that why he was doing what he was doing. So know what inspires you, and then you can continue to return to it to remind yourself. So you don't wait and hope the universe gives you something inspiring. You are empowered to find it and to nurture yourself, to nurture your own dreams, to nurture your own growth. We are empowered people. Another wonderful example of this, one of the things about having someone who is a sports fanatic as a child, we probably have every sports movies out there, and there's so many that are inspirational stories. And we have our favorites, but one of our collective favorites as a family is the movie Miracle. How many of you know that movie, Miracle? that be?
Movie night.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, let me ask you this. You may not have seen the movie, but how many of you are aware of what the sporting event that was called the Miracle? A few of you. It's when the United States beat Russia. I knew you were going to know. Because we had the Boston hockey players on there as well, but the American Olympic team beat the Russian Olympic team in the 1980 hockey Olympics. So in 1960, American won the gold medal, and then Russia just won every year after that, just dominated. And there was all these complaints because Russia used professionals, and at that point, we were still using amateurs in sports. So it was our college kids against their professionals. So they just won, and they were like unstoppable. Even before the 1980 Olympics, several months before, the Soviet team played our NHL, that's our professional team, All-Stars, and our All-Stars lost by 6 points. So they were even beating our professional team, the best of the best. So the likelihood of this being a win was pretty small. So you have Herb Brooks, who became the coach for this 1980 team. You just have to watch the movie. I remember it because had just moved down to Maryland with my family. We knew we were only going for 2 years, and the minister of the church that we had gone to in Cleveland, I don't know who it was really, to be honest. It was some minister of a church, had us over for lunch. I think they wanted us to go to their church, and we didn't. But we had lunch at their house, and the Americans were playing the Soviets in the Olympics, and it wasn't for the gold medal, it was for the semifinals. But everything stopped. And I had never watched a hockey game before in my life, and it was riveting. It was so emotional. And the whole thing about the Miracle is because just as they're winning, it's countdown. Al Michaels yells, "Do you believe in miracles?" And everyone's going crazy. And we watched that movie so many times, and every time we're crying, and like, yeah! It's like we don't even know how it's going to end. We get so into it. It's so good. It's such a great moment. But the coach of this Olympic hockey team, he had been on the 1960s Olympic team, but he was the last person cut before they went to the Olympics. So he held that in him. And the United States didn't win gold medals after that in the hockey. So he's working on this in his head. And so he continues to grow and evolve and learn. But he's always learning about how Europeans play because he realized they play a little bit different. So he's creating his own little system. He's not applying it to his college team, the college teams that he quotes. He does sort of the typical way Americans play hockey. But when he took on this Olympic team, in fact, they said, well, you're hired, but there's an advisory group, and you need to talk to us about who you're going to put on the team. He said, oh, no, I know who's going to be on this team, because he'd been thinking about it so long. And then he does this whole different style of doing it, of playing that no one else had done, because he had spent years working on this dream. No one else was doing it, so that it culminated in this great moment, but it was after 20 years of him cultivating this seed desire and how to make that happen and how he could be a coach the team differently so they could actually beat these incredible European teams that Americans had a hard time playing. He nurtured himself. He studied the tapes. He came up with his own way to respond, and it worked. And so we had this whole collective moment. And by the way, it was just, if you don't remember that time, we were boycotting the Summer Olympics that year because the Soviet Union had invaded Afghanistan. So there was just a lot of energy between the Soviet Union and the United States, always has been. So it was a huge win, and then the team, well, I won't even tell you how it ends. I have a feeling you know. But then they go on to the gold medal round. But that was a collective experience, but it was one person's dream and his own nurturing of that dream. Just as Reverend Michael had this dream of the beloved community and continued individually to nurture that within himself. So be open and be empowered. Third, we're moving fast, baby, is be clear. You can know that you want to grow and you can know you want to do these different things, but the most important thing when you get the what is to know the why. Why am I even doing this? Because you're going to come across those difficult times, those places when it's uncomfortable. And if your why isn't clear, you're going to quit. And you might even get to know the why even more deeply as you go through those uncomfortable times. As you're going through, what is my why strong enough? Is this really my why? And you might actually change your why, but it's very clear, very important to be clear about what that why is. There's also, I was listening to a motivational expert. She does a ton this is what she does, is study motivation. And it was so interesting. She uses a lot of different examples, but the easiest one is Hanukkah. They asked people who celebrate Hanukkah, and I guess they were watching them, that they would light the candles on the first day of Hanukkah, and they would light the candles on the last day of Hanukkah. But those middle days, they just go, maybe. And what they find is that it's actually in the middle part where we have the hardest time. We're really motivated at the beginning, and we're really motivated at the end. Like I think of our annual letters. We get really excited and write our letters to ourselves, and then we love getting the letters at the end of the year. But in the middle part of the year, you might forget. Like, what was my intention? I don't remember. Moment of high resolve. It's completely left me. I don't remember what I was intending. So to know your why, to continue to keep it fresh before you, and I'm just going to say this. It's a little advertisement. If you do write a letter this year, we're giving out these. You give me your letter. The stationery's back there. You get a little book, and you can write what's in your letter and re-look at it throughout the year so you can keep yourself empowered, inspired. So you have the why, and there's another part that I really love. There was a TED Talk. It's probably one of my favorite. And the guy who gave the TED Talk, he's the CEO of 1-800-GOT-JUNK. Have you ever heard of that? Got Junk? And he's had all these different, he's been an entrepreneur since he was 7, so he has a ton of different businesses. But what drew me to the TED Talk was his title, which is Your Vision Sucks. And this was revelational to me and so helpful, so I'm passing it on to you. This is the be clear part. So one of the things I think many of us know, maybe from your businesses, is that it's really good to have a mission statement. And here's another thing, sidebar. I've been trying to differentiate between mission, vision, purpose. Who cares? We basically want to know who we are and where we're going. Whatever word you want to use for that, that's fine. Just who are we and where are we going? What's our intention? Where are we? We have to have some sort of growth. So the idea for so many of us that has been told is that it needs to be short and to the point. So when we first started the Lighthouse, a bunch of us got together and we created like 5 or 6 sentences, and they were okay. They're a little hodgepodge of different things. It was long. Seemed long. So when we had a guest minister come facilitate a board retreat, he's like, no, you've got to bring it down to 1 or 2 sentences, clear and to the point. And we did that, and we liked it, but none of us could remember. A week later, we're like, what was that again? And we forgot to write it down. So it's been shared with me, like, we have to have a vision, a vision, mission, or purpose statement to be clear who we are. And I totally agree, but I've resisted it. And this guy hit on what my resistance is. When you only do 1 or 2 lines, it's so generic to the point of being meaningless. As I was looking around at different people's mission and whatever their statements are for different centers, they all sound exactly the same. We're nice people. We're all inclusive. We want you to grow. And to the point where it just really doesn't say a lot. Or it's like, it's nice, but so what? So I thought he was kidding at first, but then as he kept talking, I realized he was serious, and I got so excited. He said, what everyone should have is a 4-page mission statement. A full 4 pages. He said, if you can't write full 4 pages, people really don't, they're reading a statement, but they really don't know who you are. They don't specifically understand what you're about and what you're doing, that you have actually multiple ways of being. You're not just this one little statement. Then if you have one statement, it refers to the 4 pages, it has context, but one statement in of itself doesn't tell people anything. They come and they're like, yeah, that's nice, but so what? Who are you? And because as I read, everyone has the same mission statement, similar, and they're all very nice. But do they galvanize somebody? Do they galvanize? So he's talking about to corporations, but what if you do that for yourself? Be clear, know your why, and have a 4-page mission statement. But imagine if you did that, if you took the time, maybe over several months, just to really spend a lot of time. 4 pages is a lot. But just think how much you would get to know yourself and why you are here and why you are doing what you're doing. The whole essence of this month is you are chosen. You are chosen to be here. It is a very special thing that we are on this planet. As I was sharing Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about the likelihood with all the DNA combinations of this he said there's been 100 billion people on this planet, and yet the possibilities are astronomical of who could be born that are never born. So the fact that we are here is extraordinary. The fact that we are here now, at this time, in this place, is intentional. There's an intention behind it. And so we can lead our life just for comfort or just to make things feel good, or we can tap into our why am I here? I am here for a reason. There's a divine, infinite intelligence that created the cosmos, the galaxies upon galaxies, and it created you. Why did it create you? And get clear on that why. Be motivated by that why and write it out in detail. 4 pages, that's asking a lot. Even do 2 pages of why you're here. Because this is why you're here. It's the whole reason why you're alive. It's worthy of your time. So be inspired by being open, be empowered, be clear, and the last one is be aware. We need to be aware that we're growing. Growing doesn't always have, like that movie Miracle, that was a big moment, right? But he was growing all 20 years. It wasn't just in that moment. And all those hockey players that were part of that, they've continued to grow. So sometimes you're in the limelight and you get all the feedback, but we live a long life, and our why transcends just a moment. And so to acknowledge and be aware of how we are continuing to grow even when the rest of the world doesn't see us. Be aware, because that will inspire you. If you're not aware that you're growing, you're going to lose inspiration. We start losing motivation because it was an interesting thing, this woman who does research on motivation, she said what they found was that people would she was working with someone and they really wanted to do something, but the more they thought about what they wanted is they wanted to have the end result, but they really didn't want to do the work to get there. Like, that wasn't fun for them, so they just didn't do it. You have to like what you're doing. That 20-year journey, that coach had a dream, but he loved what he was doing. So your why has to include joy along the way. It isn't just, I will feel joy at the arrival, at the finish line. Do I feel joy in the process? Because that is going to be one of the main factors in whether you succeed in this thing that you want to grow in. And the way you're going to find joy is to actually see that you are growing. There are so many little things that we are growing in and we don't acknowledge to ourselves. So when I was in acting school, I learned a lot in my one semester. We had to all sing, we had to take a singing class, and the very first day of class, we had to sing a solo, which was horrifying. So I picked a song that has no range. I did Day by Day. Have you ever sang Day by Day? You just sing the same thing over and over. Stayed safe. And I did really well on those few notes. And so he liked it. He said, well, because their goal is, his goal, and the school's goal was to teach you how to sing, project, to sing loud for Broadway. So he gave me a song with a lot of range to expand my projection. But the hysterical thing was, I'm supposed to be singing louder, and he's teaching us how to project. He started singing, by the way. He was a Broadway singer and sort of blew us all out of our chairs. I learned what powerful singing was, and the song he gave me was, It's a Very Quiet Thing. The irony. So I'm belting out, It's a Very Quiet Thing. But the song has always stuck with me. Because the words are, when it all comes true, just the way you planned, the bells don't ring, it's a very quiet thing. You might be holding the world in your trembling hands, and you might think the choirs are sing, but it's a very quiet thing. There's no fireworks, no crowds aren't, it's quiet. And we have to attune ourselves to that quiet successes that we're having along the way that other people don't notice. We have to be aware. That's what keeps us inspired. So my last movie today, on number 4, is Enlightenment Guaranteed. This was an independent movie that came out in the early 2000s. It's a foreign movie. I think it was primarily in German. I loved independent movies. Siskel and Ebert gave it 2 thumbs up, and it was sort of advertised as a comedy. I went to see it. The first third is in Germany, and it's these 2 brothers, and they clearly, there's just tension between them. They're very different personalities. And the story was I didn't know what to think of it. And then the second third of the movie is in Tokyo, and they lose all their money, and they get lost. So I didn't find this funny. I found it stressful. I'm like, I hope they find where they're going. And so the whole comedy part just went over my head because I was too anxious that they lost all their money and were lost in a foreign country. The third part of the movie takes place in a Zen monastery. And in fact, the Zen monastery in Japan gave the film crew 2 weeks access to their inner workings. So you get to see what a Zen monastery, how it runs. Nothing really happens. This is not a movie about the miracle. Psha! This is so quiet. And they're just these little moments. And there's not a lot of talking. It's a Zen monastery. There's some talking. There's a little bit of the brothers sort of, but surrounded in this peace. And then when they leave the Zen monastery, first of all, just being in the Zen monastery, the filming is beautiful. And then quiet, very quiet. And then as they're on the subway, they leave the Zen monastery. They still don't have any money. But it's a busy subway, and they're sort of sitting across from each other, and one brother yells to the other, goes, "I'm gay." And the other brother goes, "Yeah." That was probably the biggest climax of the whole movie. But it was so beautiful. And then at the end, they're chanting together. They're in a tent, sleeping in the middle of Tokyo, doing their chants. And that disharmony and dis-ease you feel at the beginning has completely healed. But it's not like if it was an American movie, this big emotional moment. There's no big emotional moment. It's the quiet things. And I love it because to me, that's like the spiritual journey. The spiritual journey, I think one of the reasons why we like manifestation is because we want to know this is real. Because so much of our spiritual lives, you can't see. You can't say, "I've been changing. Look at me. Oh my gosh, I am growing. I'm really seeing." You can't do that. And it has no meaning. That just looks ridiculous, right? But you know it. We have to acknowledge ourselves. So take a moment on your journey to be aware you are growing. Even if you feel like you're failing, if you're committing it to your goal, you're not failing. You're learning so you can continue to grow on your journey. So no matter how small, how subtle, it's happening because if you've intended to grow, you are growing. And just because the rest of the world isn't seeing it doesn't mean it's not happening. So you have to be aware and give thanks to yourself for the growth that you are going through because that's what we need to keep inspired. Again, if we don't think it's working, if you're halfway towards your goal, the reason why people stop is because they don't really think it's making a difference. I've been doing it. I got really inspired the first whatever, but now it really hasn't made the difference. I haven't arrived yet. I got a long way to go. It's really not making a difference. Then we quit. Be aware it is making a difference. If you are showing up to yourself in alignment with your intentions and goals to grow, you are changing. And it can be subtle, and it can be very, very quiet. But it is most definitely beautiful. You are chosen. You are all chosen. Be inspired. Be open. Be empowered. Be clear. And be aware. Let's pray. And just standing in this presence of love, that knowing each and every one of us is the center of this infinite love intelligence of the universe. That even in this very beautiful and precious moment, this love surrounds us and folds us and is each and every one of us. Right now. Right now. There is nothing missing. There is nothing lacking. There is nothing that needs to be fixed or changed. That we are completely loved and accepted just as we are in this moment. And it is from this love we feel the joy and the empowerment to want to grow, to expand into it and to know it in different ways than we've ever known it before. We desire to grow and to expand and to evolve. And for every one of us, how that looks is different. But that desire to grow is spirit. That is love itself, wanting to express itself through and as each and every one of us in a unique and inimitable way. So we say yes to ourselves. We say yes to this inherent desire to grow, to deepen, to expand. And we say yes to allowing all the resources to support us, whether it's other people, podcasts, books, talks, whatever it is that inspires us, music, our own writing, whatever inspires us, we allow our hearts to be inspired. We open ourselves to this presence, to the inspiration. We are clear of our why. We are willing to take that time to know the why that starts from and as this love. And we are aware that this love is always succeeding. This love is always succeeding. This love is always succeeding. It has already said yes to this growth. And so for the magnificent growth that all of us are participating in this very day, I just say thank you. Thank you, infinite love intelligence of the universe. And we release this word into the infinite spirit of life, knowing that as we release it and we let it go, it is already done. And I invite you now to join me in saying, and so it is. Amen and amen.
I walk in God in all I do. I walk in God in all that I say.